Hello team and welcome back to another Line War cast. This is your map today between akamisc in blue and Dåseåbneren in red. This is from the T2 2023 tournament that is going on right now in Line War. This is the lower bracket semi-final. So the winner of this game will play the loser of the last game that we casted on the channel between Summon Southern Nickname Sucks and Welcome to. I won't say exactly who won because I'll, leave it up to you. You can go watch that video. I won't spoil it at all. But this is very deep in the tournament. The loser of this game, unfortunately, will be knocked out and come in, I suppose it's 4th place at this point. And then, yes, as mentioned, the winner will go on to the lower bracket final. And the winner of the lower bracket final will play in the grand final of the tournament. But hopefully that made sense. There's 2 towns immediately from Dåseåbneren who's spawning in the top right in red and following up with 4 barracks. I love this heavy barracks play. And akamisc in blue spawning more in the center of the map is going for 2 factory tank and helicopters out of this airport. I don't suspect we'll see much navy. We might see 1 dock from AKA potentially to get over this top left island, but more likely I think at some point there would be commando drops. But that's why we watch the game. To see, it's certainly going to be a lot of infantry for red, and then some combination of tanks and then maybe other factory units. Or just entirely tanks. This is the first refinery that akamisc is building at the same time as this town. Because red opened up with 2 towns, red will likely have a little bit of an eco lead right now. It's 330 for blue and 430 for red. But picking phase wise, and something that comes up in these games relatively often, is blue spawned in the center and red spawned in the top right, and that sometimes gives blue a little bit more of a better opportunity to box the opponent in. So it'll be very important for Dåseåbneren to not get stuck in the top right. And something very important is that this is game 3 in this series between these two. It's a best of 3 series in the group stage. I believe the grand final is something different. Either a best of 5 or a best of 7, but in the group stage, or in this stage of the tournament, it's a best of 3. So it's tied 1-1 right now. Dåseåbneren's up to 5 barracks, and notably akamisc has not built a single barracks yet. Has 2 sort of groups of infantry in the bottom here capping, and 1 group of infantry. I say group, you start with 4 infantry on each territory when you do the picking phase, so in general I would say 1 group for 4. There's 3 tanks out now. 4 tanks for akamisc, and the second helicopter's on the way. And Dåseåbneren has the first factory for red. And also a farm. There's that dock from akamisc, and so the plan is to use transport boats to go across the top left, which does make sense. As mentioned, the alternative would be for blue to put down a barracks, start building commandos, and commit 1 transport plane to do this. I think there's pros and cons to both strategies. There's enough water territory here, and there's 2 refineries for blue. The only way of which is to cap them is to use boats. So might be one of the reasons why AK is doing that. 510 income for Dåseåbneren and 467 for akamisc. AK is starting to build some SAMs, just in case red goes for planes. Unbeknownst to akamisc, Dåseåbneren has not built an airport yet. The only energy units that red is building is these tanks out of that forward factory. And helicopters seem to be generally like a preferred thing that we see in these games, in these tournament games. I believe it, in my opinion, it's certainly like the highest skill floor unit in the game. But because red opened up with so many barracks, infantry actually does a decent job of shooting down helicopters if there's enough infantry. They can shoot up if the infantry parks out underneath the helicopters, they can do a very good amount of damage. So we'll see if that comes into play at all. Dåseåbneren in the top right, we see these two farms that are going down to give red more of an eco lead. And a decent run by of 6 infantry to the left. I don't suppose that these red infantry are going to be able to destroy a factory. That'd be a very big pickup if they were able to do so. I don't know. Can they do this? No, they can't do this. Yeah, they certainly can't do this. Alright, there's 2 more barracks on the way for akamisc. All of these infantry are probably just going to go towards the front. They're not going to get on these transport boats. I'd assume that AK is only going to send 3 infantry across, cap one of these territories, and then build a barracks or something on that island. But I guess maybe not. I don't know. I guess you could just do it either way. You just keep ferrying infantry across to the top left. It's not like blue's gonna run out of energy. There's a second refinery in the south for akamisc that will probably be built at some point as the tank and helicopter numbers grow. And income-wise, 537 for blue and 666 for Dåseåbneren classic. Second factory for Dåseåbneren as well. Kind of nice thing about these two towns for red is that both of them have ports on them in the water here, and ports are a very efficient economic building to construct. In general, like general rule of thumb is you want to build industries first, so that would include farms, mining sites, and lumber camps. Ports next, towns, and then cities. But you know, it's still line war, so there's a lot of room for your own strategies in there, but that's generally the idea. This is a pretty big fight in the center of the map here. We're just seeing pure infantry, and now some SAMs show up for Dåseåbneren. If red can get enough of a SAM count, it'll be very strong. They'll be able to shut down these blue helicopters. There's now 4 of them. A 5th one is on the way. And akamisc is building a destroyer out of the dock, which will be used to cap all these water territories. Blue's already put down these commands. And in a 1v1 between a helicopter and a SAM, I don't think either plane wins or loses. I mean, the helicopter is going to lose if it just decides to sit under the SAM the entire time, and that's what happens. Okay, sweet. This infantry gets the assist on that. And in a 2v1, the SAM will definitely be destroyed. Red's building the first refinery. And this is a cool setup. If we go top down, Dåseåbneren's actually done a very decent job to take a lot of these territories in this like central landmass here. Income-wise, it's 718 for red and 607 for blue. akamisc now building some artillery. One of the problems is that there's no real body block in front of this artillery, so if the infantry get on top of this blue artillery piece, they're going to destroy it pretty quickly. But the artillery count will become a little bit important just because of the number of barracks that Dåseåbneren's built, with the 6th one super aggressively in front. Which, if you're red and you feel like this push is going well and there's no risk of losing this building, then this is a great spot to put this barracks. It's always going to be important. It's closer to the front line, so the units don't have to walk as long in order to get into the fight. And the beep beep we hear is akamisc running out of energy. Second refinery is on the way, so that's great timing. And now a combination of missile boats and destroyers for blue that are starting to cap that water territory. Income-wise, 637 for blue and 790 for red. Dåseåbneren's actually a decent amount ahead here, I think, with that. At this point in the game, how long it's been going on, and for that to be the income differential. Another blue helicopter goes down. akamisc has the tank count advantage, but these 3 tanks are very damaged. I mean, the one in front was super on fire. Second tank gets taken out, and this is, I think, this is a pretty important pickup for Dåseåbneren to destroy those 3 tanks. I think that might matter a lot more than it would potentially appear. Because these factories really have to work overtime for akamisc, it's important to get some artillery out. And then replenishing the tanks. Blue's still building SAMs. Inside sort of a shock move, Red hasn't built an airport yet. It's not like it's super unexpected to not see an airport at this point in the game. But I think in general, most folks would have mixed in an airport. It wouldn't just all be ground units like this, but it's working so far for Red. This is the power of artillery pieces. If the infantry don't get on top of the artillery pieces, they just do so well with how much damage they can do to these infantry. Now it will start to change because, you know, as mentioned, there's no body block between those artillery pieces and the infantry. And income-wise, 832 for Red, 707 for Blue. Great flank by these 2 tanks from akamisc. The objective with the tanks is to destroy the SAMs. That is why they're making this move in like this. And you can see this haste move command from AK to clean up all these. Because one of the kind of... is it tactical or strategic? I don't know. Advantages that Blue has right now is the fact that they do have an like an airport. There's 3 helicopters, about to be 4 helicopters. If Blue can keep the SAM count very low, then there's a chance that Blue would be able to show up with a huge helicopter swarm, and we've seen in a lot of games how that can just win immediately if you can get enough helicopters. They do a lot of damage when they're hovering over their targets. akamisc doing a great job to micro these 2 tanks while also fighting on the front. And nice things about these run-bys is that all of these Red units, they'll be delayed to get to the front now because they're, you know, running to the back to try to destroy the tanks. AK is just going to go around and try to destroy the refinery. This is Blue's vision. Refineries have like this anti-stealth capability, or not capability, but anti-stealth property. So you can see them more easily in the fog of war. But producer-wise, so there's 3 barracks and 2 factories for Blue here. In comparison to the 7 barracks now and 4 factories for Red. So Dåseåbneren's army is going to be quite a bit larger. And just like most RTS, numbers, like quantity has a quality all its own. 842 income for Blue and 874 for Red. So akamisc is getting back to sort of parity here. I think this is a very close game. AK is starting to get this trade route. The 2 towns are constructed, so it just needs the 2 ports. I almost suspect at some point that Blue will turn off this dock because there's a lot of boats in the, you know, the water on the left there. There's enough that they can cap pretty effectively. And then that money can be used elsewhere. This is huge if this SAM destroys this helicopter. Wow. Every helicopter counts. There's still 5 for Blue though, which is really good. One of the strengths of helicopters is that they don't have to sit on the airport. If they're sitting on the airport in between missions, I believe they repair quicker than if they land on an allied territory, but you don't have to, like when you get 5 planes on an airport, the airport will stop producing planes. It only has room for 5. So helicopters don't have to sit on the airport the entire time. They can land on your own allied territory. akamisc now has 3 SAMs, which is a decent amount to stop any sort of planes that Dåseåbneren would show up with, unless it was some very deliberate building up of like 10 helicopters and then launching them. So one of the nice things for Blue here is that no more SAMs really need to be produced. It can all be artillery pieces and tanks, which will generally do better in a straight up land fight. But red continues to add producers into this center part of the map. Just a huge army that's being produced. First port is on the way for akamisc, who does stop this dock. And then at this point probably would expect, I was going to say expect to see more producers around this location. AK is going to start building a second airport. And it might continue to be helicopters, it could be strikers even. Strikers would be in range of these helicopters. You can see when I click tab here, tab is the hotkey for the range that strikers can go, represented by the blue line. A lot of these producers are in range, so maybe a hit squad of 5 strikers can destroy a building in one pass. It's bombers. Okay, so it's bombers from akamisc. Very interesting. Love to see it. Income-wise, 960 for blue, 932 for red. akamisc is now ahead on the income. akamisc was one of the players that a lot of folks had kind of slated to win the tournament. And not to discount Dåseåbneren at all, because, I mean, this is the lower bracket semifinal. This is very deep in the tournament. But I believe Las Vegas betting odds would be on akamisc in this matchup. So blue's kind of content to just hold this choke. Worst case scenario for akamisc, there would be some dig in here. Entrenchments and chokes are very good, especially after that last buff. This is the strength of helicopters. They're just so maneuverable. At this point, they're up in the north to relieve some of this pressure, and then they could jet over to the south if there's no SAMs for Dåseåbneren. And I expect very quickly we'll see this other port for akamisc go down. Look at that. Look at that. It's almost like I know what I'm talking about. 964 income for red and 990 for blue. That is going to probably change very drastically once this trade route is up. When the merchant ships start delivering their cargo, there'll be a lot of income for blue. And red in general has stopped capping territories. There's no real more easy territories for red to cap that are uncontested except for in the bottom right. And I suppose in general it's the same for blue. But I think there's more towns and ports that AK would be able to build in the controlled territory. $10.10 now income for akamisc. And 1019 for red. I think this is very close. Income-wise, it's very close. I think even just positionally, it's still very close. This will very likely matter in the bottom. akamisc is reinforcing the bottom with a factory as well. Because the north here clearly a little bit of a stalemate, and I don't think with how many producers red has, it'll be very easy for AK to just push towards Dåseåbneren's base. It's kind of, we're always going to have this little bit of a stalemate in the center. The bombers will change it drastically, but I don't think akamisc is going to launch with just 2 bombers. I don't even think blue will launch with 4 bombers. I think probably 5 or 6 is the desired amount before blue really shows red that, like, hey, I'm going for bombers now. This is the time of the game where I go bombers. And it's interesting to think whether Dåseåbneren's gonna switch to SAMs. SAMs can't use their main DPS mechanism, which is their machine gun against bombers. The bombers fly too high. Or if at that point Redwood will put down an airport to build interceptors. So AK is going to send 5 helicopters down to the bottom. I think this one also probably was supposed to go to the bottom, but it's going backwards for whatever reason. And this would be super annoying if you're red, because moving these SAMs, the SAMs just, they're very slow in general. They're not nearly as quick as helicopters. And then these blue helicopters can do their damage and then get out before the SAMs even show up. The artillery count for red in the north is growing, which is good for red. And before having an idea of who's gonna take this game, probably important to check the ecos. 1094 for red. 1104 for blue. This is very close. I think the longer it goes on in this position, the better it is for blue. Just by how many territories there are and the eco potential. But even then, it's a little, you know, it's tough to say. This dock in the north for Dåseåbneren somehow not spotted. These blue boats are content to just kind of stay here and pick off some of these infantry that try to get into the fight in the south. So when the bombers finally launch, it's going to be 3 SAMs a little bit to the north for red and then 4 in the south. There's now 5 bombers. And there's no more SAMs that are currently being produced for Dåseåbneren. And in this game, these are the only 2 fights that matter that we're seeing. Unless I'm missing commandos being landed somewhere. I suppose that could be a potential thing that blue could do. Build a barracks and then start sending commandos across. But that would take pretty long for that to actually do any good. We're still waiting on blue to launch these bombers. I think in general waiting this long is actually a good thing. And Dåseåbneren instantly starts building 2 SAMs out of the factories. Maybe just sensing that there's enough artillery here that it's okay, but the thing that's lacking is the SAM count. There's 5 in the north. These are the bombers coming into Red's vision now. Five bombers isn't too much, especially with this many SAMs. But as you can see, the SAMs don't launch, they don't fire their machine gun. It's only their rockets. And in general, this is very good for red. This is extremely good for red. The bombers, there's enough SAMs in that location that they're dealing with them. It's very expensive. Bombers take a long time to build as well. And the way you can tell that red is comfortable with this, I almost wanted to say confident, and I went to say comfortable, and then you got, what did I say, confident, whatever, it doesn't matter. Red's building a town very close to the front line. This shows that red feels, you know, there's no way this is going to go down. It's also an upgrade to a city. Town and port in the top right. Oh, and okay, so the game's over. That's a huge snipe by one single missile boat, or so. I don't even understand how this happened. That's a huge deal that the trade route went down. We'll see it in the eco. 1193 for red. 1180 for blue. So it doesn't feel as... I thought that blue's income would drop even more. But either way, I'd say at this point, if blue can pull this back, this is a comeback. Dåseåbneren's building another town very close to the front, but has destroyed one of the barracks in the south. This forces akamisc to build a barracks, or a factory rather, on the other side of this forest. And another bombing run, but unfortunately now there's only 4 bombers that are being launched as part of this mission. Blue's definitely got enough energy because of that depot setup in the south. 1190 income for blue and 1213 for red. Momentum certainly with red, and then of course all these new eco buildings are going to kick in. Two SAMs being produced at a time for Dåseåbneren, who is slowly starting to collapse on all these buildings. And I keep moving, like zooming out the camera, but let's just see. So it's like, I can count 5, 7, 8 barracks and 5 factories against definitely not that much, or not as many. 2 factories and 4 barracks up there, and then 2 factories and 1 barracks in the south. And this is starting to become such a blob, like such that the only real way to deal with it is an overwhelming number of planes or a rocket. It is what this would look like to me, at least. Income-wise, 1312 for blue, or red, rather, and 1220 for blue. Who destroys this one missile boat in the top left. And at this point, barring like some huge sort of landing that goes on from blue, I think this might be over. Here's that barracks in the north and this one transport boat. So maybe this is the idea over time. It would be pretty decent. Part of the thing of red not having any airports is that if there was a decent landing force that shows up from blue, it's more difficult to respond to that. Because you can't fly units over, you'd have to walk all your infantry up to deal with the landing. I mean, I get to say that as somebody watching this game, casting it. I'm not freaking out over all the multitasking, because this has been a very quick game by both players. But besides that, I don't think there's anything that blue can do. I mean, red is clearly gonna win in the south here, just by numbers. And then in the north, it's even more convincing. I think there'd have to be a rocket on the way, and then blue would have to dig in super far back. Another great pick-off from Dåseåbneren in the top left. I really like that AK built these 3 towns, though, in order to try to keep up with the eco. I think that's like the smartest location to build them. 1185 income for blue and 1462 now for red, who has a second city on the way. I think whenever I play Dåseåbneren, like on ladder, when I run into him, I feel like one of the strengths is that he builds eco like very aggressively. If Dåseåbneren's pushing at all successfully, then probably there's going to be some eco built. And I think I, as a player, need to improve on that, because I think that's a very strong quality to have. I think the AK, I thought this was going fine for AK, until it wasn't. Classic line war. But there's no reason why blue will give up easily. This is a tournament game. Fight to the bitter end. 1517 income for red and 1175 for blue. And who knows, maybe as the next update, fingers crossed, I have no idea what's going to be part of it. But maybe we'll get a kind of like a replay overlay that shows the income, so I don't have to read it off to you all the time. Probably old habits die hard. I'll probably keep reading it off for months. But exciting times. We talked on the last video a little bit about AI and the hype surrounding it. I have no idea when it'll be out. I've not seen anything about it. I have no idea, but it sounds like it's relatively close, which I think will be very good for the game. And then you too can get on Line War and play akamisc or Dåseåbneren in a tournament, in a ladder game, in a team game. Who knows? Is this BM? Is this BM? Are we gonna say this is BM as a community? Is this BM? This town's super, super, super close. I'm kidding, of course. I don't think that's really BM. It's the only other eco that Dåseåbneren can kind of build. And you know it's sort of a bad deal for blue, because blue's eco has not grown at all in the last few minutes, but Red's has. Dåseåbneren now has a 500 eco advantage. No rocket on the way for blue. Even a rocket at this point wouldn't be able to fix what's going on. I suppose maybe, again, if there's a decent landing from blue up here, and then also this trade route gets back up. But blue's about to lose another airport, would certainly lose this town very quickly. And then to make matters worse, it looks like this one tank was able to destroy this refinery and is now showing up to the depot. Well, I'd say this is an upset. From what I think a lot of the challenge predictions were on the bracket is linked in the description below, and there's folks who did some predictions. So we're going to see Dåseåbneren in the lower bracket final. And then the winner of the lower bracket final goes on to play the grand finalist, I guess the winner of the upper bracket. And you can see the last video on the channel was I think it was the upper bracket semifinal that we casted. So Dåseåbneren will go on to play the loser of that game. And shout out to akamisc for making it this far. And well played Dåseåbneren, well played both. Yeah, so there's 2 more matches, lower bracket final and then the upper bracket, the grand final. We'll cast both of those matches on the channel. AI hype. Hope you have a wonderful night, day, evening, whatever it is. Liking, commenting, subscribing, it all helps the channel grow. And I appreciate it greatly. And, you know, we'll see you around. Enjoy. Good luck on ladder. Peace.